Hi, thanks for spending some time on the site. I wanted to have a little bit of a talk to a new colleague of ours, Paul Addison, who is the managing director at DevAssist. You may have been on the site and seen a whole selection of products we have available from DevAssist that can help you make some informed decisions. But wanted to introduce you to the man behind the vision and the product, Paul Addison. Welcome, Paul. How are you today? All right.
Very good. Thank you, Daniel.
Good. So tell us, DevAssist, what's it all about? And how did it come to be?
It came to be, my background was in land acquisition. So for many, many decades, I used to buy sites and push them through the planning system. And every time I pushed a site through, I got masses of public objection. The British public hate change with a passion. They really, really hate it. So my epiphany was really sort of questioning, why is the British public not aware of these sites? I know where they are. I know where to predict where development is likely to take place. Surely if we create a product that educates people at the point of purchase on where these sites can be, we've got a business. And here we are 13 years later, and it's all proved to be true. So yeah, we've got a business, and we're helping now thousands of people when they buy a property understand that location. Location is the key sort of element that sort of contributes to a property's value. And yet all a solicitor does is look inside the red lines. So what we do very simply is we look outside the red lines for anything that could impact the enjoyment, the use, the value of that property.
Absolutely. So it's a bit like the conveyance, as I say, inside the red lines, a bit like saying, if you're going to do a viewing, we're going to shut all the curtains, not let you look outside the windows. Just look at everything inside the house. And you're reporting saying, actually, open the windows, look at the view and enjoy everything around it, and stand in the garden and look around you and see all the outside stuff. So it's the stuff that could ruin the enjoyment of a property, like traffic noise or the view or whatever it may be. But there's quite a high percentage of reports, I understand, from having read your site, that do come up with things that you might not otherwise expect. I mean, what sort of percentage are we looking at?
We actually currently, we track this every year based upon the thousands of reports that we do each year. Currently, we're at 44% hit rate.
Wow.
Now that hit rate, to sort of define it, means we have found one or more high risk sites within 75 meters of the subject property. So it's a staggeringly high hit rate. We would have had a very legitimate business if we'd have had a hit rate of 10%. But for interest, when we started running this stat, it was coming in at about 30%, and we've watched it steadily grow every single year. And that really reflects changes in national planning policy, which is very, very pro-development, even more so under the current Labour government. So it's an incredibly high hit rate. Doesn't mean it's a deal killer. I've got to stress that. You know, we're here to give you the God's honest truth, whether it's good news or bad news. Sometimes we could tell somebody that there is a high risk development site, but it might not bother them. But to another buyer, it is of very, very significant interest to them. And it could be enough to either pull out of the transaction or renegotiate the price.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the thoughts of there being developments in an area are of no consequence to many people. However, because we're dealing with home movers like you guys that are out there buying property and actually wanting to take more control and wanting to have more information to make informed decisions, these sorts of reports are key to be able to get the bigger picture. So, for instance, I spoke to one of our customers last week who is really getting focused on flood risk, not necessarily from rivers or coastal, but groundwater and surface water flooding, flash flooding. And for that sort of person that's actually seen an environmental report and thought, do you know what, surface water is an issue. If you then go and look at the planning in the area and look at all the brown or greenfield sites around your property that are currently drinking as much of that water as it possibly can, if you can imagine that being developed and built on, 400 houses go on it, it's all tarmacked. There's an awful lot now not doing the drinking. So if you already had an issue, that's only going to be exacerbated by a development in your area. And of course, you're only going to get an insight as to whether there is a development in your area by looking at DevAssist.
Yeah.
Is that a fair assessment? Yeah.
It is a fair assessment. And touching on that point, because a lot of people make big assumptions on what can and can't be developed, often without any knowledge of the particular subject. And building on areas that flood is still happening, and it will continue to happen. And the best example of that is London. London was a marshland, and yet look at it now. So we are still seeing planning consents granted in spite of the fact that advice from the flood authorities has been to refuse planning permission because it's a floodplain, and yet we're still seeing those it's a key issue, and it's one that's not going away.
So I know you've got a range of products. So you've got the DevAssist or DevAssess, DevAssist Premium commercial product. You've also then got the probate.
Yes.
When I saw that, I thought, hang on a second. Of course, as an executor, your role when dealing with deceased estates or the return on the asset for beneficiaries. When I saw that product, I thought, okay, so some of these findings can have a significant impact on the value of a property. So I'm assuming something like your Dev Probate product is there to do a similar job and find developments in an area that ultimately could affect the resale value of a property, that could affect the return for beneficiaries. Is that right?
Indeed. Or it could be the executors are unknowingly selling something which has huge development value, which is way ahead of its existing use value.
Good point.
We primarily created the probate product to protect executors, which are under a duty by law to make sure they achieve best value for the estate. And I know from my rather predatory past as a land buyer, we're always interested in buying cheap land. And, there are many occasions, and hands up, I've been guilty of it, where we have bought property under the market value because the owner was unaware of what we had in our vision. They just saw existing use value, we saw development value, and those two figures can be dramatically apart.
So a really good way of someone maybe thinking of selling and downsizing, has a significant plot and thinks, okay, I'm going to sell my property. You have an estate agent come around and give you an understanding of what the market value may be, what buyers they may have, what they're willing to pay. But you may have development opportunity, which puts it into a very different bracket, and where you might want to look at dividing off your plot and doing something with the one next door. So you're looking at development opportunity as well as the risk of other people developing.
Absolutely. Sometimes, we're just about the truth. It's not whether it's good news, bad news. We don't have skin in the game, so we just tell the truth. And we will find in a relatively high percentage of cases with the Dev Probate product, hidden value that no one has seen. And unfortunately, estate agents don't understand development. They've got no experience in putting sites together. They don't have the vision that somebody from the development industry will have when they look at the boundaries of a property, and they will instantly visualize where we can create value. We're just sort of, if you like, leveling the playing field, giving average Joe the opportunity of looking at that property as a developer would look at it, so that they get the benefit of that hidden value and not the developer.
So for land buyers or people that are thinking about building their own property, could they identify a plot of land before maybe it's even on the market or before they've made any inquiries? Could they just drive around and go, I've seen this site potentially, and they could identify that and buy a report on that plot of land or for that plot of land to give them a clear understanding of what it is, whether it's on the market or not? Then they could probably make inquiries once they understand that it has potential or value.
That's right. And what we do is, because we understand national planning policies and how local policies work, we can give them a good indication as to really whether they're flogging a dead horse and it's got no hope at all of getting a planning permission, or it could just give it that initial green light that this is worth spending some time and money on, as there is some potential there. So it's a product that can be used for Mr. and Mrs. Average looking to buy that dream property, or it could be for the executors of an estate. It works in both cases. I should add that all of our products will look at the asset that the clients are buying. So we always look for development potential as well as development impact outside the boundaries. So our
Brilliant.
standard products do also look at that as well.
So as with many of our environmental products, we have an API and the address and plan go out and it goes through the machine and it spits out the data because it's looking at data readily available and outcomes report within sort of 30 minutes, maybe an hour. Do I understand you've actually got people, proper human beings, actually looking at the data and putting some thought into this? Or is it just into a data set and out it comes?
No, this is one thing I'm very proud of, and it may sound old-fashioned, but we are real people. Real people doing real investigations on every single order we get. Obviously, we make use of technology, and we've got some amazing technology that we've created that allow us to do these products, create these products in a relatively short period of time. But it is still somebody who is trained and experienced in what to look for. So it is a proper investigation on every single order we get. It always touches human hands, where, as you well know, an awful lot of searches and reports do not touch human hands. It is literally a data scrape of information that's spat back at the end user and relies on them. So we go through a lot of data. We would go through planning data, and planning data is a really good way to start. Planning data on its own is just a vast selection of applications. We go through that with a fine-tooth comb and extract those that are of relevance to the end user so that they can understand and visualize what is being proposed in the area that they're buying.
Brilliant. And for anyone that's asked, because we always get the question, it's all about timescale. How long do these things take? On average, how long does a report take from the point at which someone gets the order, we get the details to you and the order's placed? What's the sort of turnaround timescale for your reports?
Our DevAssist report, which is it's our lowest level report, but I never like calling it low because that almost sort of implies that it's the bottom. It is an incredibly powerful report. That is a 5-day turnaround from receiving the information and returning it as a completed PDF to the end user. Our premium reports, we do act quicker on. There's a 3-day turnaround on our premium reports, both for residential and for commercial property. There is an option if people want to jump the queue, a bit like a fast track at Thorpe Park, where you can pay a little bit extra and it gets prioritised and normally returned either same day or certainly within 24 hours.
Wow, fantastic. Well, look, we have a full range of products for DevAssist on our website at propertysearchesdirect.co.uk, so do have a look. And if you've got any questions, of course, give us a chat on the website or give us a call. Or if you've had a report, of course, and you've got any questions, I'm assuming clients can come and pick up the phone to you guys, Paul, can they? And just ask questions and have a direct conversation with you and your specialist teams. Brilliant. Is there anything we've missed? Is there anything that people must have? What's the must takeaway from this? Or have we kind of covered?
There is one takeaway, which is a little known document that we investigate. And it's got a nickname of being called a Sheila. A Sheila stands for a Strategic Housing and Economic Land Availability Assessment, and these exist in every single council in England and Wales. They are painful to find, but we know where they are, and they have a huge amount of sites that are already at their sort of genesis moment of creation in the planning system, but they don't get revealed in planning data. They're not revealed in local plans. So it's one of the key features of our service is we look at these and we can then report on what is coming as well as what we can see. We would look at an OS and see potential sites that don't have any planning history, but we can then report and educate people at the point of purchase that be aware that that field next to you has some clear indicators that would excite a developer and would, is likely to mean that it's going to be prospected for development in the future. So,
wow.
It's not just about what's happening or has happened. It's very much sort of crystal ball gazing and looking ahead to the future so that when people come to sell their house, they haven't got a blight in that local location that could prevent them from selling.
That's really powerful. I mean, when we revealed the hazard checker that we make freely available, it's a postcodes hazard checker. We draw the polygon and report on all hazards, including planning and flooding and ground stability and radon and all the other bits and pieces. And we have lots of people. When we first launched that, sellers would say, we've never flooded. Flood is not an issue. And we have to say, look, that may be the case, but the models are always changing and developments are happening that could seriously impact upon the future environmental impact on your property. So if you're out viewing a property and you see that field or you see that brownfield area or see that something that might be ripe for development, the owner turns around and says, it'll never be built on, you can't take their word for it, because they may wish that it'll never be built on, but you'll be the ones that'll be living in that property, having spent however many £100,000 on that investment, who will see the development happen and it will impact upon you. And once those applications go in, there's nothing you can do about it. It's already happened. So yeah, these Sheila sites are really important then. So they are the hidden.
Very much. And you've also just touched on another little known policy which exists. It's live today. And that is the 5-year housing supply. The 5-year housing supply is a requirement that every council in England and Wales must perform to their housing supply. If a council doesn't have a 5-year supply, the presumption is in favour of development. So putting it simple, a council has a 3-year supply. I come along as a nasty developer, put in an application for 200 houses on a greenfield site. It will be considered on what's referred to as the tilted balance, and tilted balance is benefit versus harm. And it is felt in those circumstances where there's an undersupply that the benefit outweighs the harm, and therefore planning should be granted. And that could be on greenbelt land, it could be an area of outstanding natural beauty, it could even be in a national park. So this is where we can apply that intelligence of what's happening at a national level and at a local level, so that we can predict how vulnerable an area is to hostile planning applications. Never say never. I'm seeing sites being developed now that at the beginning of my career, 35 years ago, I thought myself would never be developed, and now they are. So you can never say never.
No, well, yeah, fascinating, absolutely fascinating. So don't take a seller's word for it. Never take the estate agent's word for it, because let's face it, they're just trying to sell a property and they don't really care about you. But get the information. Unfortunately, now with products that DevAssist are putting out there, they are starting to reveal information that you would otherwise have never been able to get your hands on. So don't ignore it. Paul, thank you very much for your time today. I hope our viewers have taken something away from that, but there's lots of information available on the site. And of course, we're there to support you whenever you need us. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Daniel.